Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of GeekVerse Podcast. I am your host, Taylor, and today, oh, what a day! We got the last 6 episodes of Star Wars: A Bad Batch. I am going to be diving into these now. I normally do like every 4 episodes, but I thought we got the last two that are all like releasing on the same day, and we're just gonna sneak it into this. So just makes it all a nice little wrapped up in a bow kind of situation. But I've done all the other episodes, so you can go check those out, and those are in batches of the starting one was 2 episodes, I believe, because they released those at the same time, and then it was like episodes 4, then 4 in batches, bad batches. But anyways, I digress. So we're going to be getting into episodes 11 to episode 16 today. Before we do, however, I have a big favor to ask. With your internet connection, in the search bar, you can find us. GeekVerse.ca is our home base. GeekVerseCast is our Twitter. GeekVerse is our Facebook. Be sure to check us out on Patreon, where you can get ad-free early episodes available there, including a bunch of retrospectives. We're going through the X-Men retrospective right now. You can get, I believe, our John Wick retros have released publicly now. Evil Dead retros, I believe, are either on Patreon or available now. But this is why you go check out the social media, because you get all the information available there. We do have Mandalorian that'll be dropping later today for episode 5, and then we have our John Wick 4 review that we did, and we got plenty of other things that's coming down the pipeline. So check out those social medias. While you're kicking around on the Patreon here, again, thank you to our Patreon producers, Aaron Braden, April of Darkness, Joshua Wright, Jack Grant. You folks are fantastic. Could not be doing this without you. Thank you so very much. Okay, I think that is everything that I should be covering in the plugs. So without further ado, let's get into this. I'm not going to do any kind of a non-spoilers. I'm just going to kind of go right into it and yeah, have some fun. So, episode 11, titled Metamorphosis. Dr. Royce Hemlock travels to an Imperial facility on Mount Tantus to meet Nala Se. He tries to persuade her into taking part in the Emperor's cloning projects, but she refuses. Meanwhile, a covert transport bound for Mount Tantus ends up stranded, and Sid assigns the Bad Batch to recover its cargo. While exploring the wreck, they discover that the cargo is an immature xylobeast secretly cloned away from Camino to serve as a living armament resource. An Imperial strike force is sent to recover the beast and capture all nearby witnesses, forcing the Bad Batch to retreat. Shortly after, Lama Su is brought to Mount Tantus to persuade Nala Se to cooperate. He divulges Omega's existence to Dr. Hemlock in return for his freedom. This was so unexpected, and this episode just really hit home for me, particularly because I was not expecting Xylobeast to ever get that story back into Star Wars. Like, I thought we were gonna leave it as is from the Clone Wars. I mean, they heavily implied that Palpatine is up to some shenanigans and up to no good with this creature. So I'm very happy that we got to see something here, and I don't need anything more. Just the fact that they dabbled in this a little bit in the storyline and used it as a tool to further the development of the overall storyline narrative of the cloning, I think was fantastic. So overall, again, too, it was like a horror vibe. When we first got into this episode, I just felt like there was Star Wars zombies, you could say. Obviously, I know it's not the case. I thought we were going to get a Rathtar, to be honest, but getting the Xylo Beast and having it revealed in the way they revealed it was very cool. Having it in these different stages of evolution, depending on how much energy it was drawing upon, I really liked. But yeah, it felt like a horror show, which was fantastic. And again, we get to see more Republic Commandos, and they were just not doing good at all in this situation. But yeah, sure enough, we don't necessarily get to see any other implications or applications that they're going to be using the Xylo Beast for, aside from it just being a weaponized resource, I guess, especially with its armor being so thick and it can't be brought down. They had a hard time bringing it down in this, but they brought it down the classic way that they learned in the I think it was on Malastare back in the Clone Wars arc that they did for this. So yeah, needless to say, they managed to take it down and they get it aboard one of their transports and get the transport brought to Mount Tantus, Wayland. So a lot of very, very cool stuff going on there. And yeah, we get to see this Dr. Hemlock character kind of popping off, and we get to be confirmed. Okay, so there are still a couple Kaminoans still left alive. It's not the end for, well, it is the end for their race, but there are still just a couple. So I'm excited to see if they ever touch upon that again. I don't expect them to. Like I already said, this could be the only thing that we get. It helps wrap up that Xylo Beast storyline narrative that we got introduced in the Clone Wars, and so I don't need anything else on top of this. But if they do, I'd be very interested to see how or what they do. They're clones. I'm assuming there's a couple other ones. I'm not sure how you would necessarily continue their species. I guess aside from, at least how would you continue their storyline? You'd have to just cancel this cloning project or just kind of can it or destroy it or something like that. That's all I could really think of, but that's a little too dark. So moving on to our next episode, episode 12, The Outpost. Crosshair is assigned to Lieutenant Nolan and travels to a remote Imperial outpost on Barton 4. Under the command of a clone named Mayday, the outpost is attacked, and 2 cargo crates containing classified cargo are stolen. Nolan orders Crosshair and Mayday to recover the cargo. The 2 clones eliminate the thieves and find the cargo, which is stormtrooper armor. But an avalanche fatally injures Mayday and buries the cargo. Crosshair carries Mayday back to the outpost, but Nolan chastises them for their failure and refuses to provide a medic for Mayday, who succumbs to his injuries. Fed up with Nolan's arrogance and disrespect of clones, Crosshair kills Nolan on the spot before losing consciousness. Later, he wakes up in an Imperial operating chamber where Emery Carr orders him to cooperate with her if he wants to survive. So this episode, hence I picked this to be the thumbnail, was just I felt like it was a work of art, very artistic, very dark. This is one of the top darker episodes that I have seen in the animated series. And I just feel like everything was carefully chosen and implemented into this episode. And it serves as that turning point for Crosshair. And I don't think it was rushed. I don't think it was anything along those lines. I felt like it was done to a T. Perfection. Like I said, Crosshair is trying to fit in with the Empire, and he's seeing more and more clones not defect, but jump ship, and it's playing at him a little bit. And this is the second mission that we're on with him in this season, and we're seeing how it's really taken a toll on him, especially here when he bonds with Mayday, and then he like fights with him and everything like that. And the last guy he bonded with and fought with was Cody, and Cody ends up abandoning ship. So now you have, in this case, Mayday doesn't jump ship. He implies it, but he does his duty. But they learn, oh, it's just this armor. That's all. The clone troopers could have used this armor. They could have survived probably, but one by one, the clone troopers kept falling. And finally, with Mayday just being on death's doorstep, and the journey, it was a good portion of the episode, but so fantastic because you have Crosshair bringing Mayday back to base and just facing this harsh winter environment. It was insane, but he does it, and they just collapse, and they get no medical support. The Empire is just being the Empire, and you don't get many scenes like this in the live action, I would say, Star Wars. And there's a few in the animated series, and there's one particular where Anakin kills this one evil guy, cold blood, and Obi-Wan's like, Anakin. And I think it was with during one of the Mandalorian episodes where there were like peace talks and stuff coming to the Republic. But anyways, this scene here was another one of those cold blood execution moments where the Imperial captain guy, he gets like called out, like, hey, turn around, or like, sir, and he turns around, and Crosshair just guns him down with one clean shot, killing Nolan. I just thought, holy shit, this is a kid's show. This is insanely dark. He then gets, losing consciousness, wakes up at an Imperial operating chamber later, and we know, okay, he is now located on the Mount Tantus Wayland facility. And so this will be interesting to see what's going to occur here for him. So that is everything with that episode, but that's probably one of my Oh, one of my favorites. Oh, it's top three of this season two for sure. It was just incredible. Moving on from the Outpost, though, we jump to episode 13, Pabu. After informally cutting ties with Sid, the Bad Batch and Omega help Fee Genoa recover a lost artifact. Genoa convinces the clones to accompany her to the peaceful island of Pabu. There, they are hosted by Mayor Hazad and his daughter Liana, who befriends Omega. However, tsunami threatens the lower levels of the city. Hunter manages to rescue Omega and Liana at sea, while Tech and Wrecker help Genoa and Hazard to evacuate the population before the tsunami destroys the lower city. The Bad Batch agrees to stay on Pabu to help with the rebuilding efforts. This one, it was a filler, not gonna lie, but it just was very, very beautiful and calm for the most part, tsunami aside. But I enjoyed it. It was just, you get to really see how the artists really flesh out the environments and the animation. It's just beautiful. Really, it's just a testament to the whole team working on this show. It just looks fantastic. So again, I said it was more on the filler side, but the clones are kind of lured in to this ideal lifestyle of no fighting and just living the good life, being peaceful and helping and providing community and all that kind of stuff, growing up and growing old and not having to worry about the empire or war. And I like that a lot. I like that they kind of put this plate full of heaven in front of them. I thought it was a good notion. So especially for Omega, who absolutely would love to stay in a place like this. I think that's great. But of course, there's always something, and in this case, the tsunami. I really, really like seeing this in the Star Wars universe when the water was pulling out and the lower levels were not necessarily safe because these tsunamis do hit like once every like 50, maybe like 100 years or something like that. I can't remember what they say, but they do hit. So you're not supposed to build out to the lower levels. The upper levels of this planet's like big rock mountain, they have reinforced walls with ladders to get people to climb up and all that kind of stuff. So it's set up to basically survive tsunamis. But the lower levels are not. But they expanded to those lower levels. They were building those lower levels docks and everything like that. So they had to get everyone evacuated up, which they did, except for Omega and her friend. And her friend was Liana. So they're out on a boat, and then the tide flushes out, and they get trapped on the ground. So then they gotta like start running, and you get Hunter coming in on his what is it, not the I was gonna say the Mandalorian ship name, the Marauder. Comes in on the Marauder, and they basically just managed to get in the nick of time. And again, cinematically, it was just fantastic. Just seeing this huge wave and the intensity and everything. It was just a stunning episode. I definitely enjoyed it, and everyone survived, thankfully. So we're all good there. The Bad Batch at the end does agree to stay on the planet to help with the rebuilding efforts, and I like because it just kind of gives us a little bit of a backseat where we know the Bad Batch is doing something over here. We can jump over onto other storyline narratives, and that's exactly what we did. Because in episode 14, which I will get to after this ad break, and we are back. So, episode 14, Tipping Point. Several clones are imprisoned for disobedience against the Empire, including Hauser, are rescued by a group of rogue clones led by Rex, Echo, and Gregor, and brought to Coruscant. Now, I love this because we get just a whole batch of clones just AWOL, sticking it to the Empire. And it was so neat to see this, knowing what we know now. We have all these different rebel groups and splinter cells. To know that there was a clone rebellion splinter cell, just maybe not officially being rebellion, but just being their own thing, I really, really like that. And it's cool to see actually a whole plethora of clones being rescued and just breaking out like, yeah, we're done. We're done with this. No, thank you. Again, they don't know where the clones are being taken. No one really seems to know. But, of course, these clones were going to Mount Tantus, Wayland, I believe. So, with only a few encrypted data scraps recovered in the raid, Echo rejoins the Bad Batch on Pabu. And on Mount Tantus, the transport's destination, of course, Crosshair is interrogated by Dr. Hemlock about the whereabouts of the Batch, specifically Omega. He escapes in an unintended moment and sends a warning to his former comrades before being recaptured and subjected to more intense torture. After receiving the message and analyzing the data Echo had recovered, the batch learns about the existence of the Empire's secret advanced science division. But again, they don't know the location of where it is, but they know about Dr. Hemlock and they know that there's some real shady stuff going on here. And they know, okay, that the message specifically warns a little bit about Omega, but I don't think that that got through because Crosshair, he really tried, but he was not able to get out. He fought like a boss too. He was taking out I think, multiple squads of stormtroopers when he was trying to get to this comms room. And you know that just there's something going on that's very peculiar because the doctor, Emery Carr, I believe it is here again, was trying to kind of coax him and keep him from acting out. And again, it's interesting because we don't know what her role in this is yet, but there's something suspicious going on with her, more so than Hemlock. And her, I mean, we learn more about her when we get to episode 16. But again, this one was just cool to see the general narrative forwarded in the time while the Bad Batch is just kind of kicking back and relaxing a little bit. But we finally get to the 2-episode finale, episode 15, The Summit. This one was really, really interesting. Again, I'm a very big fan of Star Wars politics, and I feel like we got to really explore a little bit more of that with the Empire. We had this private meeting going on with Dr. Hemlock, Grand Moff Tarkin, and a few other notable characters as well, which I'll detail in a little bit here. But in order to find out more about the Science Division's activities, the Bad Batch trails Dr. Hemlock to an imminent summit hosted by Tarkin on Eriadu. The gathering concerns establishing a network of total control over the galaxy in which the ASD's secret research in the Kaminoans cloning technology is supposed to play a critical role. As they sneak into the base where the summit is held, the Bad Batch discovers that Saw Gerrera has also infiltrated the compound to assassinate the assembled Imperial top-level officers. The intruders are discovered and the alarm is raised. But Gerrera sets off explosives which disrupts the base rail car that the Bad Batch must use to escape, leaving them stranded. So this, I was not expecting Saw Gerrera. I'll put it out there. And he is just pissing me off like he always does because he's thinking about the cause, but I feel like the cause is always put below him. So he always survives in these situations, and I feel like he is very much like a dope because he's not thinking about the overall greater good. And Tech tries to tell him that, where hey, you need to think about the intel that we can get by doing what we're doing here, and you can use that to do more. This is something I can't remember. Where did I hear this from? It was, I feel like it was another show or something, but if you were to eliminate these heads and these leaders, they would just be replaced. And oh my goodness, it's bothering me. Oh, it's bothering me. You know what? It was actually from John Wick. There we go. And that's the kind of the thing that kind of unfolds in that narrative is if you eliminate these members of the table, these higher ups, they just get replaced. That's the same here. You eliminate them off Tarkin, you eliminate this Hemlock, they will be replaced by other people that are qualified to be in those positions, and it doesn't do anything. But Saw Gerrera doesn't see it like that. He's like, no. Let's just kill them and be on our way, and it'll be greater good, justice for the galaxy. We're fighting an empire, all that kind of stuff. And that's where he's just not capable of seeing the long term, I would say. So his meddling and blowing this up has no effect on the summit meeting, really, because I mean he kills a lot of troopers and destroys a few shuttles, but no one in the higher up command gets affected. They lock down in their secure bunker, and he failed. So he just totally botched this, and he really messed it up for the Bad Batch. That Batch's plan was down to an ace, and if it wasn't for Saw Gerrera, everything would have been okay, but you can't predict something like that, this extremist being here, ready to blow things up, but I digress. The other members of this meeting, which I'm pretty sure were, goodness me, Director Krennic, he's not a director yet, but captain. And then the other one, I don't even know if he's a colonel yet, but Yularen. I'm pretty confident that was him because it looked like him a little bit. It sounded a little different, but he was defending the clones, so I'm pretty convinced that that was him. But they were all talking about the clones and if they need to keep them around for these science experiments by Dr. Hemlock, or if the clones figure out what's really going on, are they going to rise up because they have political backing in the Senate now from certain systems. But there's a whole political component here that I just enjoyed, and I love seeing the Imperials have this high octane meeting. And like I said, Director Krennic being in there was an absolute surprise. And just like Tarkin's like, "Oh, talk to us about Stardust and all that." So I really, really enjoyed that. That was an unexpected pleasure. Really, really cool. And we got a little bit more into the cloning project, and this is a direct cloning project for Palpatine. We don't know exactly what they're implying, but I dare say that it's got to be something sequel trilogy related that they're looking into on Mount Tantus in this facility. Again, this is where I feel like the crossovers are kind of happening with the Mandalorian. Maybe crossover is totally the wrong term, but they share similar story beats as the Mandalorian, where you have the weird cloning that was going on and you have the cloning going on here. So I think that, in my opinion, we're just getting the groundwork laid down where we can see how this cloning really came to be on Exegol and in the sequel trilogy, which is great. I think we need a little bit more context. At least the fan base does. I don't think the general audience cares. They just say, "Oh, Palpatine has returned. Secrets only the Sith knew." That's all you need to do for them. And if they want to know more, then by all means, they can dive into some more of this canon source material, I guess. So there you have it. However, during their escape, though, in this episode, they get air support coming at them while the Bad Batch is in the rail car. And I did not expect this at all. And it made me borderline tear up because it really, really hit me hard. But Tech, he is at the back of the rail car because he had to reactivate power to it. And with the back getting shot and breaking off, it derailed the front car a little bit. And so he knows that the only way to get the front car to continue on the track is by executing Plan 99, is what he says. So he cuts his cable, or not cuts his cable, but he fires the hinge attaching the back rail car. And when he does that, it detaches and the front rail car latches back onto the rail and just shoots off. And it gives the Bad Batch a chance to get out of there. It does not give Tech the opportunity to escape as well. We get a very emotional scene of Wrecker trying to do what he can, but he can't do anything, and Tech just is falling and he dies. And I did not clue into that. It totally caught me off guard. He had a moment earlier in this episode with what's her name? Gosh. When they were leaving Pabu, he had a quick little moment with Fee Genoa. That's it. And so I don't know, they implied like maybe a little bit of a romance or something like that. And again, this whole season, I feel like I should have seen it coming, but they were just doing a great job at really developing all of our characters, I felt like, especially Tech. And I think I just got too blinded by it because I really resonated with Tech as a character. I really, really did enjoy how he was thinking and how he was emotionally handling things and everything. I really like that. And getting to see so much development with this character really was working for me, and so much that he was moving up to being one of my top favorite characters in Star Wars. And so when this happened, I guess, I was just blinded by how much I was really resonating with the character, and it caught me off guard because he is gone. He sacrificed himself, and I guess that's what Plan 99 means. I guess I kind of branched off into episode 16 with this. I apologize. It's all kind of like a blur, but we'll just keep the ball rolling. So yeah, he dies in episode 16. They leave it on a cliffhanger in episode 15, but he dies at the beginning of episode 16 called Plan 99. And the team manages to get away, and we get a very surreal, traumatizing retreat scene where the rail car goes and smashes through the station and it wasn't able to slow down. The team like wakes up semi unconscious, and Omega passes back out, but then we get to see it from like her eyes. Wrecker picks her up, and we see Echo and Hunter basically fighting off the stormtroopers around them, and it's a visually very cool sequence, but it's so painful being in the wake of losing tech. It's very, very painful, and they manage to get away, and they retreat to Ord Mantell, treat their injuries, and come to terms with their loss. And I guess it was just because Sid was the closest location nearby that they could get to kind of regroup. And again, they lost one of their teams, so I don't blame them for just being compromised a little bit. So Sid, however, has plans of her own. We kind of could have known this was coming before, because she insinuates like, hey, I've been protecting you guys, I can turn that around. And she does. She reports to Hemlock. Hemlock comes in with some Venator class destroyers, whole legions of stormtroopers and Imperial walkers, and they capture Hunter and they capture Wrecker. This forces Omega to come out into the open, and if she waited a little longer with Echo, it could have been so much better. But she gets captured. And then we have Echo and AZ basically coming in to rescue the team, but Omega is split from the group and is being brought to a different shuttle. So then we see him save Hunter and Wrecker, which is great. They almost get to Omega to rescue her, but they don't. They manage to take off, and that shuttle flies to Mount Tantus, where she meets Nala Se and Crosshair. Again, Crosshair is completely drugged out of his mind, so he's not very cohesive in here, but she meets Nala Se, and Nala Se is now being forced to work on the Emperor's cloning project. Otherwise, Omega will be harmed. And this is the last where we get, like, leading up to this is the last scene of the season with the Bad Batch, where they say, like, we're going to not stop. We're going to find Omega. That's that. Which is, damn rights. And then in the final scene, they close the season out with Emery Carr again appearing, talking with Omega, and she reveals herself to Omega as being her genetic sister, another clone. So we have these clones that are being groomed as Imperial Camino scientists, which is interesting. And I can see the appeal, because then that's why you have Nala Se being super attached to them, because she taught them. Or, I mean, maybe she didn't know. Maybe it was just kind of low-key kept under the rug. But, I mean, this clone obviously was fully grown, and I don't think she is altered and augmented to have an accelerated growth rate, but she basically, she's a scientist for the Empire. So there's a lot going on here that I want to learn more about. I think that's fascinating. The Empire is just running rampant with this, and it's going to be very curious to see what happens in season 3. I'm glad we're getting a season 3. I think it's well earned. This show, I've mentioned it before. They kill more people in this than they do in The Mandalorian, I would say. There's so much death, unexpected death, and emotion in this. The differences between season 2 and season 1 are night and day, I would say. And the differences between season 1 and the Bad Batch's introduction in the Clone Wars season 7 is it's there. But again, those characters, they play very similar personas in those two, I guess, two appearances. So when you get to season 2 of the Bad Batch, one of my favorite things has been the development of these characters. I think that they have just knocked out of the park. They have toned down Wrecker, and they've made, like, in this finale, seeing this emotional side of him, and it was crazy how affected they were by Tech's death, how affected I was by Tech's death, and Tech just really coming out of his shell, is showing interest in maybe like a romantic relationship, really bonding with Omega, seeing Hunter really kind of just go more for the cause, but embracing this peaceful life. Seeing, Wrecker is still classic Wrecker, but he's changed. He's become more humble. He's become much more calmed down, and I wouldn't say emotional, but seeing the emotion pour out of him in the back half of this season. And Crosshair, that there were multiple episodes, but the Outpost, that one episode that just turned it around for him, that was incredible. And seeing him trying his hardest to escape, or not even escape, but just get that distress signal out to warn the Bad Batch. I loved it. There was so much going on in this episode that I absolutely loved. And I say episode, this season, in this season that I absolutely loved. I can't recommend this show enough. I think it's a fantastic successor to the Clone Wars. Again, when season 1 was announced, I was apprehensive. I wasn't sure if I was going to get on board, but clones and all that, it does it for me. And I cannot wait for season 3. I imagine we'll probably get that in 2025. We had that 1 year jump between 2021 season 1 and now this, but yeah, dish it out. Let's have it. The next 2 years, bring out that season 3. In the meantime, I will be rewatching this episode or this season, and enjoying so much of the content that it put out. So I would give this season probably a full. I would go a 9 out of 10, just because there's 9 out of 10. Yeah, I'd stick with a 9 out of 10. I was thinking maybe 8.5, because there are a couple of filler episodes in this that I'm not really super on board with. But again, it's just character development, and you can't go wrong with that. So 9 out of 10 is what I'm going to stick with, because there's so much perfection in this episode, this season, with our characters and our storylines and our narrative. So there you have it. And with that, that is everything. So we'll be back in another review. You'll see myself appearing on. So until then, we'll see you in the search bar. Have a good one.